always look at. Yes, this week I'll be trying to keep my dodgy Mr. Miyagi impressions to a minimum as we look back at one of the best sports movies ever made that might also not actually be a sports movie. Is it a martial arts movie? Is it a movie about the impact of bullying? Perhaps it's a movie about the relationship between a kid and his surrogate father. Or maybe it's all of those things, and that's the reason that The Karate Kid is an exceptional movie stuck with a really shit name. So I guess the first question is, do you think of this as a sports movie? Because it's not something I ever really thought about until I was watching this. I was like, well, it kind of is, isn't it?
Well, it's class, isn't it? It's they do say it's one of the most beloved and inspirational sports movies ever made. I mean, I guess karate is a sport, isn't it? So
yeah, but that's the thing. I think most people, when they think of like, as soon as you have karate, kung fu, whatever, most people immediately go martial arts.
But because it's a tournament,
yeah,
I mean. But again, in that case,
but then blood sport is a tournament.
Sport. That's exactly what I was going. Blood sport would be
Kickboxer,
a sports movie. Kickboxer, yeah. I mean, if you go in tournaments,
but I don't think of those as sports films at all.
No,
I think of those as martial arts films.
Maybe because this tournament is sanctioned with the other.
Maybe that's where the line is. Wait. Is this sport sanctioned? Is this legit? Because if it's not, it's martial arts. So yeah, we'll go with sports.
People have classes, as I've already said, one of the most beloved and inspirational sports movies ever made. You said it as well, and I've watched it a number of times throughout the years, and I can honestly say I fucking hate this movie.
What, you hate this movie?
Yes, I can't stand it.
Oh my God.
Honestly,
this is a wildly differing opinion to my own.
I've been trying to not say anything when we chat throughout the week, and when you mentioned it last week and anything.
Yeah, what? I thought we were gonna argue about something else. I didn't think it was gonna be this.
No, I honestly. And the main reason I don't like this movie is because Daniel LaRusso is a prick.
Oh, and that's where we are going to argue. Because you're wrong. You're absolutely wrong.
He's a whiny little piece of shit. Do you know what? I'd rather see the kid from Flight of the Navigator in this.
Oh my God, I think you're so wrong. I appreciate now that I'm in the minority, and basically in the years since its release, kind of like the whole Ross with Friends, everyone's decided that Ross is an asshole, retrospectively. And now all of a sudden, everybody thinks Daniel LaRusso is really the bad guy in this film. And obviously that's played up to a certain extent Cobra Kai by trying to make Johnny more kind of sympathetic. Yeah. But let me make this clear. I was on board this because I've heard it so much that I was like, oh yeah, Daniel LaRusso is a dick. And then I've rewatched the film. I'm like, no, he's not. He is not. Johnny is an absolute bellend. Make no mistake about it. Johnny is an absolute prick. There might be another movie like running concurrently with this one where you could kind of create him as a more sympathetic character in terms of his home life, in terms of how he's dealing with the breakup with Ali and stuff like that. But if you're taking this movie individually, as for itself, as it were, like I don't think there's even any gray area. I think Daniel LaRusso, yeah, he can be a little bit abrasive, he can be a little bit moody, but he's a good kid in a really shitty situation, and Johnny is a fucking prick. Well, I couldn't disagree with you more.
I'm not saying that Johnny was good in this as well, because Johnny was being a dick as well. They both were. They're both fanning the flames of it. But I don't know if it's Ralph Macchio's face, but I love him. I like him in other films. I don't know if it's the way he's acting in this, but it's just he's just dripping with. I just fucking hate him in this film. I can't watch this film. Well, I can watch it because I've watched it numerous times, and I've always tried to think, am I missing something? Because as we've already said, people have said it's beloved, and I think it's like 92%. People like, I don't know what, like 92% like this film of Google users. I don't know how.
Oh yeah. Well, usually a pretty good kind of indicator is like IMDb.
Yeah. So Rotten Tomatoes is 89%, and IMDb is 7.3. But
7.3. That feels about right. Yeah.
But for me, it's just the whole thing with Daniel LaRusso. Where it's just, oh, your mum had to move. Just deal with it. Just get over it. And he sucker punched Johnny and started the whole thing. You should just. I don't care if Johnny didn't mean to trip him up.
Don't buy it at all. Don't buy like. By the way, I forgot to mention this stuff. By the way, I'm Liam. This is Rob, and for the next hour, we're going to be disagreeing loads.
But that's it. I don't know if we will be, because yes, I went straight into it with saying I hate this movie, But it's like there are some redeeming factors of the movie, like aside from Pat Morita basically grooming a 17-year-old boy or 16-year-old boy.
Oh, dude, that's so harsh, dude. Their relationship, honest to God, going back and watching it, I've seen this film so many times when I was younger, and I always loved it as probably more as a martial arts film, and now I go back, I'm like, well, it's more of a sports film. Then rewatching it now, I'm like, the thing that really grabbed me was their relationship. Well, the first half, it's almost like, and it really leads into it. It feels like it's a movie about being bullied. And again, one of the reasons Johnny is a dick, and why any of the kind of lashing out that Daniel LaRusso does, I think is totally justified, because he has a really tough time at the start of this film. Then the second half is, despite what you say, I think an utterly charming relationship between a kid and his surrogate father, and his surrogate father and his surrogate son. You know, I think people would be surprised to hear, you know, because I think when people think of this movie, especially when they think of Mr. Miyagi, I think it's almost like the concept has become caricatured. It's almost like it's become a victim of its own success. You know, people remember, oh, Danielson, you know, he does the hands and the rubbing and stuff. Kind of like the same with Bullet Time, was something I would compare it to. It's like with Bullet Time, it was amazing when it happened, but then it became such a character, became such a part of popular culture that the concept of it was kind of worn down. But it's only when you go back to it 20 years later, you're suddenly, because like, you know, I rewatched The Matrix, and I said like, Bullet Time is still amazing, and you remember why it was such a big deal in the first place. And I think because he became, and let's be honest, like Mr. Miyagi really did become, and it remains, a part of popular culture. Everyone remembers the crane kick. Everyone remembers Mr. Miyagi. He's the quintessential teacher. But when you go back and watch this film, like he has so much more depth than I remember. And he's a sympathetic character with legitimate flaws. He's not the mystical kind of, teacher from Japan, or, well, Okinawa. He's very kind of specific on that. You know, he has his own frailties. Like, he doesn't want to kind of, you know, he says all these things like, Daniel Russo, you should do this, you should do that. And then Daniel's like, oh, you need to come with me. And he says no, because he doesn't want to get involved. And it's almost like he guilts him into it. That great scene when he's drunk. And, you know, he kind of reveals his history with his wife, and obviously, her dying in childbirth, and the stuff about him being in the army. And suddenly you realize, yeah, this is a guy who got an Oscar nomination for this film.
Because of that scene, by the way.
Yeah, well, a film that the studios actually wanted to remove from the film because they thought it fucked with the taste.
Yeah, they wanted to remove it. But
it would have been a crime, because those are the moments that make this film. And it comes back to the direction from John G. Avildsen. This is the guy who made Rocky, and for his crimes, Rocky 5, but we'll let that one slide. But there's like,
which is still a better film than this.
Oh, you're out of your mind. You're out of your mind. And a great moment that kind of really just tells you why this movie's elevated above your average sports movie or your average film about, you know, a kid and his kind of surrogate father, is that bit where later in the film, and he gives him the car. And, you know, Daniel LaRusso is like over the moon kind of thing. And there's just a split second where the camera just sticks with Mr. Miyagi or Pat Morita. And it doesn't need to. It just sticks on him for 3 seconds, with Daniel being so happy in the foreground, Mr. Miyagi in the background, just looking at him lovingly, like a father, like a proud father. And it just sits there I thought it was like a really great bit of wordless cinema and wordless storytelling in a film. And it's the kind of thing I never noticed when I was younger. But I watch it now, and obviously the complete opposite to you. I was absolutely enchanted by their relationship, and more specifically by the performance of Pat Morita, which I think is legitimately exceptional.
Inviting him into his home where his mother doesn't know where he is, giving him gifts, touching him to heal him. It's grooming. It's grooming.
You're turning a beautiful thing into something very dark. Sorry, Karen.
Like, it's just, I can't get past the character of Daniel LaRusso. I can't get past it. He meets the kid. He goes to play football, and he meets, what was her name in it? What was Elizabeth Shue's name in this? Ali. If
you've got an unkind word to say about Elizabeth Shue, no, this could be the end of the podcast.
No, I really enjoy Elizabeth Shue, but Ali's a dick as well, because she's fanning these flames. She is fanning these flames. Like, she knows what's going on with Johnny and stuff. And I know she shouldn't tiptoe around Johnny because she's moved on from him. That's absolutely fine. But it's kind of like that at the beginning, she's using Daniel to make Johnny jealous, and it's working.
I don't think that's the case at all. I don't think that's
You don't think Mr. Miyagi's grooming Daniel? So
no, I don't. I think with Mr. if we want to go back to Mr. Miyagi, we're talking about like Daniel's looking for somewhere to belong. He's looking for like peace of mind from his emotions, his circumstances. So Mr. Miyagi provides all this. And that's why I think their time together never feels weird in the way you're saying. Like, I totally buy into their relationship. And to me, it always feels paternal in a way that even something like, if you're on about like weird relationships, you can go on about like, obviously Doc and Martin stuff. They feel like kind of weird, older and younger friends. This really does feel like a paternal relationship from early doors. And to me, it never feels weird. And Ali, I was like, and again, I guess it all comes back to how you feel about Danny and how you feel about Johnny. But that opening scene where I was like, oh, maybe, because I was of the mindset, similar to you, I was like, maybe Daniel LaRusso is the asshole of this film. So I went into it expecting that. And that opening sequence when Johnny shows up with his friends on the bike and one of them offers him a beer. And he's like, no, I don't want to be this is like the last year of school. I want to get my shit together, do the right thing. And I was like, oh, fuck, maybe Johnny really is the good guy in this film. And then he goes down to the beach because you can see, let's be clear, his ex-girlfriend, she wants nothing to do with him, which is made abundantly clear.
But that's why Johnny's a dick as well, because Johnny is starting shit. They broke up, just leave it, just move on. And I know that's
exactly.
But he started shit. And then it's something between these two. Daniel's just met her. So why is he trying to be a white knight for something that doesn't need to be happening?
Because he's fundamentally a good guy.
But he's not, though. He's not.
Totally is.
He's just trying to stick up to get into her pants.
I don't like. No, right. They're at the beach. He's with his new friends, who,
if
by the way,
are your face on this podcast now. You're just going really red.
Right. First, there's a lot of issues with this opening scene. Firstly, his new friends, who are the worst friends ever, they're really cool. Like when he gets to like their new apartments with his mum, they seem like the nicest guy in the world. Then he gets his ass kicked by clearly the toughest kid in town with all his friends like who have got his back, and they don't help him. And then they're just like, oh, who the fuck's this guy? Let's bounce. Like, well, that's harsh, but whatever. But I thought their relationship was really organic because it did feel like a kind of teenage relationship. Like, he's at the beach, she's at the beach. And initially, it's based purely on aesthetics. Like, he's obviously likes her because who wouldn't? It's Elizabeth Shue in 1984. And she sees him. And he's like, oh, he's a cool, handsome kid. And they just kind of like, in that kind of clumsy kid way, go up and have a talk. And then this asshole, like, he doesn't know. Johnny shows up. He is mega aggressive with Ali. Let's make that fucking
mega aggressive. But you just said as well that his new friends, in commas, left him.
Flaky bastards. Totally flaky.
Daniel has already lied to him by telling him he's a great martial artist. Before they've even gone down, he's met this guy and says, oh, yeah, I'm a great martial artist. So now he's expecting Danny to be able to do something against Johnny. Johnny takes him out. He realizes, oh, well, Danny, this prick's already lied to me. So Daniel's already lied to somebody straight away. So
it's a nothing lie. I mean, if
it's a nothing lie.
It's a nothing lie.
It's not.
He gets his. I don't think it deserves these supposed friends to just watch as he gets his ass kicked.
They met each other.
Yeah, but they invite him to the beach.
You've moved to my block. Come down and we'll have a kickabout. You've already lied to me within an hour. So
I think that's like a nothing. Like, he probably thinks it's true. He probably thinks, oh yeah, I can do a little bit of karate, whatever. And he runs into people who actually can. And in fairness to him, that's one of the things, the interesting like bullying dynamic, is that he's not a pussy. Like, he's clearly like a tough, scrappy kid from like New Jersey, and he doesn't back down. But he doesn't back down doesn't make him tough. I think it does. I think it totally makes him tough. Just because he can't fight. Like, if you're up against a kid who's bigger than you, can clearly kick your ass, he's got all his mates, and he doesn't shy away. I think that's totally tough to like back yourself and be like, I'm not taking shit from him. To go up and like, let's be clear again, he is so aggressive with Ali. He throws the stereo on the floor. All he does is come over. He picks the stereo up and says, come on now. And then Johnny immediately goes on aggressive with him. And then it turns into a fight. Of course, he has that cheap shot, which I love, by the way. It felt like such a childish cheap shot where he's being punched and he punches him. He's like, we're even, yeah, we're even. Like, he's like, he doesn't want to get his ass kicked. Okay. But of course he does.
So when Daniel thinks that she's moved on to Johnny, he treats Ali like a piece of shit anyway. And then so Daniel already is like, oh, if I don't get my way, I'm going to throw my toys out in the pram. So Daniel's already acting like a spoiled little only child brat.
But right, you've got to take it from his perspective. He's moved here. He doesn't want to move here yet to this new place. He's moved all the way across the country, and he's clearly got. In fairness to him, he's got a chip on his shoulder. His mum obviously doesn't earn much money. He's going to a place where there's a lot of posh kids, and straight away he's on the back foot. And then he has that fight at the beach, and then they do not let up on him. The next 30 minutes is basically them bullying him. It's not like they just leave him alone. Like, they're constantly making his life a living hell. Like, right down to the bit when they throw him off the side of a fucking hill when he's on his bike.
Tell me, so after they tackle him hard at the football match, nothing really happens until he soaks Johnny with a hose.
Oh, there's loads before. Like, they throw him down the hill before that. Oh, that is before that is well before. You're totally getting that wrong. He's cycling home. They come up behind him on his motorbike and they throw him down the side of a hill. Then he's had his ass kicked. But
do they throw him down the side of the hill, or they just drive him past?
No, because you remember, that's the last thing that they do to Daniel, because they kick his ass. Mr. Miyagi saves him. Then they go to the Cobra Kai dojo and say, we'll enter the tournament, but your boys can't touch him anymore. No. So that's the last thing that happens is he goes to the party, which is a great scene, by the way. He hoses Johnny, and then they really kick the shit out of him until Mr. Miyagi saves him. So before then, they're constantly showing up.
Mr. Miyagi saves him after the Halloween dance.
Yeah.
Then they go
to the
dojo.
Yeah, but that's what I mean. But the scene with like the bike and stuff is all before then. So I'm just saying, when Daniel LaRusso eventually hoses him, it's because he's like, they've just constantly been giving him shit. Like they're bullying him relentlessly. Like
I wouldn't say relentlessly.
I would like. Again, you've got to, because I don't think it's like movie bullying. It's not like they show up, they keep beating the shit out of him. I think they do such a great job of selling the idea of you being this like kid, you've got no one to turn to. Like, he hasn't got a father to turn to. His mother, despite being good intentioned, is clearly a fucking lunatic. We'll get around to her later. And he's suddenly gone to school. No one really likes it. He's got off to a bad start. All the tough kids are constantly on his shit. Like I said, they do kind of push him down a hill on his bike. And like, you can imagine, he's already upset that he's had to leave his friends behind. Now he's got these kids on his case. It's like, I think he's got a really tough job. Like, he gets it really tough for the first half.
Nobody really likes him because he keeps attacking everybody. Anybody who wants to talk to him, anybody who shows him a little bit of aggression, not even like, I'm not even saying kick it down or whatever, anybody that just talks to him in the wrong way, he snaps back at them.
So well, he does have a chip on his shoulder, but to me, it feels justified. And when you think about, again, I think it's because he has that scrappy attitude. Like, I've got to back myself because no one else will. But it's in those moments, like with his mum, and especially with, again, I guess it depends how you see it, his relationship with Mr. Miyagi. You really see, for the most part, how sweet he is. And even, I really actually like his relationship with Ali, because I think it's quite organic. I think Ali's, despite what you say, totally lovely, because there's clearly an underlying class social commentary going on in this film with Racina versus the Hills, and her parents are just the worst. Everyone in that party is just the worst because he's poor, so he's a dog. But she's the one who sees him for who he is. She's like, well, he seems like a nice guy, so I'm going to date him regardless. And her friends are saying, don't fucking date him. So I actually, despite the fact that they have those rough bits, and of course you can make arguments that she's the one who actually inadvertently encourages him to get one over on Johnny. Hence why, because she's the one who says, oh, one day he'll get his comeuppance. And it's only then when it's like almost opportunistic in the toilet. He sticks the hose in and soaks Johnny before running off and getting his ass whooped. But
he doesn't karate or anything at this point, no matter what he told the guy at the beginning.
No, he doesn't. No.
He's fanning flames of something that doesn't need fanning.
Well, I think he's like, these kids aren't leaving me alone. And she's put it in his head. It's like, well, yeah, eventually I've got to fight back. So, of course, it's a childish thing to like soak Johnny. And yeah, does he deserve to get his ass kicked the way he does? And even one of the guys, even one of Johnny's friends is like, dude, he's had enough. Like, fucking just leave it be. And he's like, no, I'll tell you when he's had enough. But like, when I was younger, and they know exactly what they're doing in that scene, is the idea of being like bullied and having like 5 of like the tough kids all chasing you down, like to a kid, that's like a legitimately scary thing. And I think the director knows that. And I don't think it's a mistake that he shoots that scene like a horror film. Like, I don't think it's a mistake, for instance, that they're all dressed like skeletons. Like, he's dressing up as a fucking curtain, the worst like Halloween costume of all time. No surprise that hasn't made a kind of, a repeat appearance since. But they're all like as scary, cool-looking skeletons. And when they chase him down, you notice it's not just dark; it's foggy and quite spooky.
Yeah.
And he's being chased down by these kids, and then they just beat the shit out of it. It's quite a horrific scene, I guess, for young kids.
That can be the start of a horror film where the murdered kid comes back for revenge and all that stuff. We've seen that enough times in the 80s. What this movie does do well. There's two things it does do well. It's the poisoned influence that Martin Cove, John Kreese, has on Cobra Kai. Like the fact that his no surrender, do whatever we have to do to win attitude just is basically drip fed to the others. And and that point. And all right, you want to look at father-son relationships. You do have two in this. We'll take away my ideas of grooming aside.
We'll just let it.
You've got as you've already said, the sweet interaction that you have with Mr. Miyagi and Daniel, which I still think is a bit suspect, but okay. And then you have basically the bully father. You've got John Kreese. It's just whatever I want to happen happens. You get to the tournament, sweep the leg, and all that. It's basically a relationship made out of fear.
Yeah, and it's actually, I mean, Mr. Miyagi kind of brings it up earlier in the film. Like he says, no bad student, only bad master, like kind of thing. And that is like the real villain of this film is absolutely Kreese. And that is proved at the end of the film when everyone else...
He is what you would call the puppet master. He is 100%. The one definitely pulling those strings. And
he's the Skeletor of the situation.
Friend, as you've already said in that scene where they kick the shit out of Daniel, which I still think is deserved because his face. But I don't like him, mate. I don't like him.
Clearly not.
It's not that I don't like Ralph Macchio. I just don't like Daniel Lawrence. But
Daniel Lawrence.
Whoa.
They're combining two characters.
Daniel Lawrence.
They're illegitimate love child, yes.
Well, they might in Cobra Kai season 4.
Cobra Kai, it's coming. It's coming.
But it's just... where was I going? Sorry. I said...
about Kreese just being the worst.
Yeah, and it's the fear that he delivers. But you could see people trying to pull away from that, as you've said, with the one guy going, he's had enough.
Yeah, and even then, in the tournament at the end.
Well, no, when they're kicking the shit out of...
Yeah, no, I was saying both scenes, like you can see it building up, like some saying like, dude, like, do we really need to do this? Do we need to go this far? And he's the only unwavering figure of like, this is what we do.
See why because Johnny is his prize student. So Johnny is feeling the tough love, but he still thinks he's feeling the love part of that.
Oh, yeah. He's like you say, he's his number one. It's very much the Mr. Miyagi. Of course, he's got more students, but really it's about his relationship with Johnny versus Mr. Miyagi's positive impact on Danny LaRusso. And of course, in another world, you almost think with these kids, I think the point is if Danny LaRusso had gone to Cobra Kai, he could have become he could have become Johnny. And equally, if Mr. Miyagi was the person at the right time to able to put an arm around him and say, no, this is the way you've got to go. It's like Johnny could have been a much better person. So it comes back to that idea again that these kids aren't necessarily the problem. It's the impact of those around them. And you even get it, as I said, with Ali. Like she's got to fight against the viewpoints of not only her parents, but the people in that social circle. Like the one scene when Daniel LaRusso falls over and he gets the spaghetti on him. And it's like her parents laugh, Johnny laughs, but then all the dads and the mums, like the grandmothers, everybody, like, oh, look at that clearly poor kid covered in like spaghetti. It's like, Jesus Christ, these guys are fucked up.
But at that moment, nobody knows he's a poor kid. You're thinking that because you've watched.
But that's what they're implying, isn't it?
Yeah, you're watching that because you've seen what Daniel's gone through at that moment. In real life, if you hear the crash and saw a guy with red all down his shirt, you would giggle, you would laugh.
I'm not sure everyone would fucking bet. Like, right, don't get me wrong. Somebody falling over is nearly always funny. It just is. But if you're like a grown-ass man and I saw a kid, let's not make two mistakes. Like, despite the fact that he's 22 when they filmed this, Danny LaRusso, Ralph Macchio looks about 16. It's one of those weird things. Yeah. He was 22 and he looked 16. Now he's 60 and looks about 40. He's just always looks super young. But if you're in like a dinner party with families specifically, and you see a kid fall over who clearly looks mortified, you might have that inadvertent laugh where you're like, he fell over and he got spaghetti on him. But like, if you're in any way a decent human being, you're like, look, he's fucking devastated. I can't just burst out laughing at this little kid's expense.
I don't.
Maybe you would because you hate Danny LaRusso's face, but you know.
But I don't buy that, because if you don't know the situation, you don't know, and I know you're saying you shouldn't laugh, and I know you shouldn't, but if somebody's fallen over and you do have that in beginning of laughter, I've lost you.
Oh, we're back. We're back. There you go. Keep going, dude.
Yeah, we'll keep going. So you would begin to laugh and then maybe trail it back a bit when you realise, this is...
Yeah.
But it's so you're in a social situation and somebody drops something. Like if somebody drops something, a lot of people would go, "Way, you've done it, you've been there, you've heard it." If you don't know the story of that person, maybe that person who's dropped all that glass, maybe is new, maybe is very nervous, but you still would be one of the guys that goes, "Way."
Yeah, but the difference is,
if you don't know the story behind it. So all these people laughing at Daniel LaRusso still don't know the story behind. They don't know.
No. I agree with you up to a point, as in, I agree if somebody drops something and we would all go, "Way." But if you turn around then and it was a bartender, say it was a girl, she's like 17, and she's clearly mortified.
And you would stop. But that's what I'm saying.
You would stop, but they don't stop. He's fucking mortified. And if anything, they double down. They're not just, it's not like a kind of jovial, there's nothing jovial, like, "Way, he fell over." They are maniacally laughing. It's like, I can't believe you would go after Daniel LaRusso and you are defending these absolute ass bandits. I don't know, man. I'm not sure if we're going to get on the same page.
But also, the other thing is, you've latched onto Daniel now, and so you are totally attacking everyone else around him. But you're only seeing 10 seconds of that scene where people laugh and then he runs out. You don't see where people go, "Ooh, actually, that was probably a bit harsh."
I think we see enough to know that they're assholes. All right, and the thing is, we're going to disagree on a lot of things. I feel like the one thing we have to be able to agree on is what was going on at the start of the film when they were trying to play football/soccer.
Oh, yes.
What the fuck? There's about 8 of them all running after the ball. There's no goals. One, where are they going? And then all of a sudden, the ball stops in the sand. And 8 of them, like they're kicking the shit out of a child, just kind of circle it and just kick at the ball. It is the worst instance of on-screen football/soccer I have ever seen, which is only briefly redeemed by the fact that Elizabeth Shue is clearly quite good at football.
Yeah.
Like, there's a scene later on when she has the football, and I'm like, well, she can play. Like, you see the way she moves the ball. Like, you know, you can't practice it on screen. Like, she can clearly play. And supposedly, she was, like, very athletic when she was younger and was actually much better at football than Danny LaRusso or Ralph Macchio, which I can totally believe because those kids were not playing anything even closely resembling football. And thank God she showed up to show them how to play.
How hard is it to just put 2 jumpers down and just set up a goal like we used to do on the field?
Exactly.
What are they all chasing? I don't. Yeah, I agree with you on that. It's a terrible representation of football in a film.
It really is. And they double down with like the soundtrack. It's like got this kind of Beach Boys. I think it's called like Bop Bop on the Beach by the Flirts. And it's just like, what is fucking happening here? It's like, it's just the worst football scene ever. But they keep coming back to soccer in this film for some reason.
No. And I mean, you think 1984 as well, you wouldn't have thought that it was a big enough sport in America at that point. So that's such.
I'm trying to think about the timing, I guess, because obviously, because that would be in the 70s when like Pele went over and there was like that initial boom. But I think it had died down pretty bad by like the mid 80s. So God knows why they were sticking with soccer so much. But yeah, nobody could play except for Elizabeth Shue. But it's one of those weird things that, like the scene that they have later where, because there's not really a training montage. There's like a mini one, like right at the end when he goes to the beach. But there's not a traditional 80s training montage in this film. However, they replaced it with like a dating montage where Danny and Ali go to the arcade, which is quite charming. And it's one of those scenes where it's actually very 2021 because they're playing mini golf. And rather than him being behind her, showing her how to play, she's behind him, showing him how to play golf. And between that and the fact that she's much better at football, at least they're pretty forward-thinking in terms of representation in sports.
She even teaches him, I don't want to skip straight to the end, but she even teaches him where the point system lies within the tournament when they're fighting.
Yeah, which is good. They give it like agency at the end of the film.
Yeah.
I thought that was
so
pretty smart.
I said there was two things that I thought they did well in this. The first being the crease poisoning the minds of the kids. Mm-hmm. The second thing, actually, you said about the training montages there, but the second thing I think they actually represented quite well is him learning martial arts from Mr. Miyagi. Yeah, because it's something called disguised repetition, where you do something over and over and over again, and it works. Do you know what I mean? I mean, don't get me wrong. It's probably going to take a little bit longer than that to, I don't know, paint the fence. I suppose. Paint the fence in this one, or is that number 2?
No. Well, there's like wax the floor, wax the car, paint the fence, sand the floor, and like and like so it's like side to side, up down, and all that. Yeah. And paint the house. That's the other one. That's one of the great things about this film is that you talk about like great training. Like usually you have like a training montage, and the quintessential one you think of is. Like Rocky IV, and the whole reason is it's like the training. It's like it's impactful. It's it's all boiled down into a 4-minute training montage, and everyone remembers it. This, like I said, there is no training montage. It's a big part of the movie, and the reason I think this film kind of is better than your average sports film or better than your average martial arts film, whichever one you see it, is because it's intertwined with building up that relationship between Mr. Miyagi and Daniel. And, they build it up over time. And of course, Daniel Russo is still that like hothead. And of course, he's trying to teach him patience and to be calm within himself. And that is instilled like through a very slow burn training program, which isn't, on paper, shouldn't be exciting. Daniel painting the house, waxing the car. But if you say to anyone, wax on, wax off, or paint the fence, like people remember every element of the training
wax
program.
Wax on, wax off, and sand the floor. I think people would understand more than paint the fence. But
or paint the house. But I think it's like he's not just instilling this training program into Daniel Russo, he's instilling it into the audience as well. And like you say, okay, maybe 2 stick more than others, but we're talking like nearly 40 years later, and most people, well, they definitely remember wax on, wax off.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And what I want to be clear of when I talk about this film is, I know I've joked about it a few times saying grooming and things like that, is Pat Morita. Mm-hmm. Gives an outstanding performance, especially the scene they actually wanted to cut, which was the scene about his life,
his wife and his son when he's really drunk, and it's fantastic.
But it's just other things as well. It's like just his subtleness. The fly catching scene, for instance, so he's trying to do it for a while.
Well, his whole life.
Okay, Daniel comes on, does it, rubs it in his face. What a prick moment again. From that, and then it's just the subtleness where he went beginner luck and just walks off.
Yeah,
and I am sorry for my racial.
No, we're doing it. I don't think there's any problem with doing a slightly off, like dodgy Mr. Miyagi impression. We're doing it from a position of love. I don't buy into this whole idea because we're doing an impression of a character we love, and I love Mr. Miyagi before. I have fallen head as much as as I said, we've got the whole thing about Daniel Russo. I think he's nicer than, obviously you do. But make no mistake, the star of this film is Pat Morita and Mr. Miyagi. His performance, and, I don't want to speak, to whether he should have won the Oscar because, I forgot the name of the guy who actually won it instead of him, but it was for a very famous performance. I do have it written down, but I've got billions of notes. But the fact, it feels like a deserving Oscar nomination because he's the guy that elevates this film. Like, he's really funny. He's really glib. As I said, he's got loads of depth. He's not just this mythical man, from Japan who gets things done. He has his own faults. He has his own personal issues. And, the relationship isn't just about being important to Daniel. It's just as important to Mr. Miyagi. And I think they know it if you notice at the end of the film, it ends with a freeze frame. It's not on Daniel. The freeze frame's on Mr. Miyagi. They must have known when their film was like, this guy is gold. And funny enough, they didn't actually want him, the studio, they didn't want Pat Morita because he was famous at the time for being in Happy Days. And of course, that was something of a comedic performance. And they were like, listen, he's too funny. People won't take him seriously. But they were like, no, this is the guy. And, I think one of the people they wanted was actually Toshihiro Mifune from the Akira Kurosawa films, like Seven Samurai and Rashomon. He's fantastic in that, but he couldn't speak enough English, so they obviously went for Pat Morita. But it's one of those roles, kind of like Schwarzenegger as the Terminator. Like, you cannot imagine anyone else playing Mr. Miyagi. And as I said, going back and watching this film, what really stood out to me more than anything else was the depth to his character and to the subtlety of his performance and the glibness of his sense of humor. He really does knock it out the park in this film.
No more so than when they're training at the beach and they go back to the car and you've got the rednecks on the racist rednecks drinking around Mr. Miyagi's car. And at first he's trying to be nice and he's trying to take boy home, things like that, which again sounds a bit
suspect. I think you're okay, it's fine.
Yeah. No, not the he wants to take the boy home. That's a bit suspect. But and they won't give up or anything like that. So in order to show them that he could do something, he chops a bottle in half, and then he kind of gets them to move, and physicality ensues and things like that. So, but it's his starting, it's his beginning, where he's trying to talk and he's trying to teach words rather than fighting, teach mercy, things like that. And the subtleness of the way he comes across with things like that is great. I think that Pat Morita in this film is the standout of this film. He is. It should be more about. He is great in what I consider a terrible film.
Yeah, I mean, I can't get on board with this whole idea of it being a terrible. Like, if you don't like it, like, fair enough. But I think this is legitimately very well made. Like, as I said, the silliest thing about this film is actually the name. And supposedly the cast actually hated the name of the Karate Kid, because when I hear the Karate Kid, you almost put it on the same level as something like the BMX Bandits or something ridiculous like that. And this film is so far removed from that. This film has like quite lofty ambitions, and despite obviously differing of opinions, I think it really meets a lot of those, because as I said, like, I think it juggles so many balls so successfully. The relationship between Danny and Ali, obviously the relationship between Daniel and Mr. Miyagi. Yes, the weird story about his mum gets lost. There's no two ways about it, and we'll get to that in a minute. The whole bullying narrative, the underlying social differences, like, all these things kind of get dealt with while also delivering a genuinely rousing sporting finale. Like, this, you can see this is from the director of Rocky. Like, it's a different movie, but it follows the same kind of structure. In many ways, the film it most closely resembles in terms of structure is actually probably Rocky 3, a film where it does have parallels in terms of, the soundtrack. Like, they actually offered Best Around to Rocky 3. It was supposed to be for that film, but they turned it down in favor of Survivor and Eye of the Tiger. And of course, there's the beach scene. But like, you're on about weird relationships. Like the beach scene in Rocky 3 is pretty homoerotic. But that idea that he gets his ass kicked to the start and then kind of builds himself up, new training techniques, a kind of fish out of water thing, kind of getting involved with a culture he doesn't understand. And I like the fact as well that they lean into the whole Okinawan thing. It's not just Japanese. Like, he does specifically says, it's like, China here, Japan here, Okinawa here. Like, almost saying it's like a different place. And having been to Okinawa, I can tell you it does. Yes, it's part of Japan, but culturally it feels like a different place. It still has that Japanese element, but the classic scene, when Mr. Miyagi goes out and he suddenly got on like the Hawaiian shirt and stuff. That's how they dress in Okinawa. Like, if you turn on the TV in Okinawa, the people reading the news are wearing Hawaiian shirts. It's like, it just feels like a completely different place. And that is what I think he's trying to get across. He's not just Japanese, he's specifically Okinawan, and he's very proud of that. And he's obviously proud of his military history. Even like he does say, like, I wasn't fighting the Japanese, he was fighting the Germans, but he did. And I think part of that, especially still in 84, is that maybe those relationships with America hadn't 100% healed. And they're trying to show him as like, I think there's like a few newspaper articles as well, which kind of refer to how the Japanese were dealt with by Americans after the war. And they're trying to create this idea. It's like, not all Japanese are these kind of caricature figures. We're not a million miles away at this point from Mickey Rooney's performance in Breakfast at Tiffany's, which is which you go back and watch, and you're like, it's so racist that you can't believe it's a thing. It's outrageous. And then to come from that to not only a sympathetic character, but such a likable, well-written character. Again, you might disagree because you're not a fan of the film, but I think this is legitimately one of the best sports films ever made. I think it's that good. You
went off on a train then. We need to go back.
I did.
We need to go back 5 minutes to what you called as an underdog story. Right.
Yeah, well, it's one of those things. I feel I'm passionate, man. I'm passionate.
I noticed. I love an underdog story. I really do. Mm-hmm. But the underdog stories are usually with people who know the sport to begin with. Mm-hmm. And Daniel's had one lesson before by the looks of it. Like Rocky is an underdog story, but Rocky's a boxer. Rocky is then able to train and build himself up. Daniel is basically just learning. And I know what I said about the training method, and it does work, disguised repetition, but I do think it takes more time than what they're showing. For him to then go in and basically luck his way through all these fights.
Oh, yeah, okay.
He does. If you notice as well, like
he wins every fight comfortably, and he's beating Johnny comfortably until he gets injured.
He runs out of the ring twice at the first fight.
Right at the start.
Not comfortably. That's not comfortably.
Every fight, they kind of play off that he wins most of them pretty comfortably. And then the last fight against Johnny, even despite the fact that he's been injured, he wins the first 2 points. And he looks like he's going to comfortably win that fight. Remember, he bloodies Johnny nose. And it's only when he goes to Kreese, and Kreese says, like, take him out, basically. It's only when he injures his leg even worse that he ends up kind of getting on top of him. Dude, like, he's really good in this. And I think you're kind of missing the, like, yes, Rocky's a boxing story, like maybe more primarily than this is a karate story, but he even says it to himself. It's not necessarily about him winning this tournament. It's about him becoming, like you said, a more well-rounded person. Like he even says when he's like, I know I don't have to win the tournament, but I won't find balance until I stand up for these guys and I do the right thing. And I think that's really where the narrative is, not so much the karate thing. It's about him becoming, despite the fact that you just think he's a complete turd, about him becoming a better kid, a better person, because I think he knows that he's a hothead and he's a bit of an asshole, but he's on the right track with Mr. Miyagi. So, I think there's like extra layers there rather than it just be, oh, he didn't get good enough at karate. But also, like, I think he gets to the final on merit, dude.
Yeah, but that's it. It's just, and I know what it's trying to do. It's trying to make you stand up for, and it's trying to, like, the bully, the kid being bullied. It's he is then standing up for himself. He's moving forward. He's beating people at their own game. But he's just standing up for himself. Yeah. That's exactly right. And I appreciate that. And I love films like that usually. But it's just, he's not a likable character. He is not somebody that I'm rooting for and I want to succeed.
Yeah, it's weird that. It's strange because I know we're like strongly disagreeing, but it is interesting because I based on what I hear, a lot of people clearly agree with you because that seems to have become the narrative. So, obviously we can get worked up and we are on different sides of the fence with this, but it is interesting that he elicits such a strong opinion because when I was younger, that wasn't the case. Like when I watched this, I remember the first time I watched this on TV and I have a very vivid memory of my brother and I at the end of the film, like it was so kind of jubilant and we were both practicing the crane kicks. And I remember my mum coming in and saying, you've both got to go to bed now, but we were practicing the stupid crane kicks because we were like, 6, 7 years old when we saw it for the first time.
I've done the crane kicks as well as a kid. I'm not saying that I've hated this movie every time I've grown up.
Yeah, no. And that's what I mean. Yeah. Like, it seems to be that the narrative shifted. But like everyone liked it. Then all of a sudden, like the Ross thing with Friends I was referring to earlier, the kind of the concept of Ralph Macchio and obviously Daniel Russo, shifted. And I was like, oh, he's actually a dick. And I was on board I was down that road until I rewatched it. And I was like, I think he's a nice kid and I love the relationship. And if anything, I like this film more today, having rewatched it today, than I think I ever have in my life. That's how strongly I feel about this film.
But I don't think that Johnny is a good guy in this either. I think that
he's the worst. Like, I don't agree with that at all.
And Johnny's got his cronies that are building him up and making him feel better. I mean, Dutch, I just love his hair anyway. Steve McQueen's kid. Chad McQueen.
Yeah, Steve McQueen's kid,
yeah. His hair is so bright yellow, it's ridiculous.
It's a bit mad. There's an interesting group, isn't it? Because there's that one kid who's the worst, the snivelling little toad. Yeah. I always thought, even when I was younger, he looked like a bit of a shithouse version of Mark Hamill. Do you know the one? It's like, it's like at the end when he almost breaks his leg,
screaming, "Get him a body bag" and things like that.
Yeah, in the corner, and he delivers without question the worst burn in movie history. Was it like must be take a worm for a walk week? What the fuck is that? Like, it's somehow both alliterative, nonsensical, and hard to make out. It barely makes sense. I just think it, like, I remember when I was younger, I heard it, I was like, what is he trying to say? And it was only rewatching it, I was like, is he saying take a worm for a walk week? I was like, dude, man, that was like the best burn they had on paper. They couldn't have done that. That character is the worst.
We go back to The Crow last week, where the massive guy ran over, what was his name? Skank.
Yeah.
And he went, look what you did to my car, you stupid asshead. Like, I'm not too sure what's worse.
I think this is worse. I feel like I could accidentally say, like, if I got worked up, like, oh, you stupid asshead. But this feels like he was like, all right, I'm going to use this, and the guys are going to love it.
He had
okay.
Listen, had that in his back pocket for a while, ready to pull it out,
Guys.
One thing that we're waiting for, just the right moment for us to say. We've all got that in our back pocket ready to say.
And that's what he's got. The thing is, it makes the character worse, but it also makes me question the writing in this film, which I think for the most part is really good. But then you have to deal with this must be take a worm for a walk week. Oh my God, just saying it upsets me. Horrendous.
The major question, I think we're going to disagree on this as well, was the crane kick illegal?
There is arguments, of course, they play up to that in Cobra Kai, don't they?
But not too much, because I think it was Daniel who already had a point taken off him previous for kicking somebody in the face.
Mm-hmm. I can't remember that. The thing is, I actually watched the TV version and they cut some weird stuff out of the fights. Funnily enough, that scene, the bit with the guys and he chops the top of the bottle, that was completely cut from the TV version, which was released. I recorded off TV last week. It was on Channel 4. Yeah. They completely cut that scene, which is quite bizarre, actually.
Randomly, when I got home today, after we landed, because I just come back from holiday, turned the TV on, Karate Kid Part 2 was on.
Yeah.
Which I'm probably sure we'll cover down the line. Spoilers, I think that was worse as well, but we'll get to the Karate Kid.
It's not amazing. No. Yeah.
But yeah, so I random that I watched Karate Kid on the plane coming home today, and then the Karate Kid 2 was on Channel 4 already. So it must be Karate Kid week or something.
Well, maybe we could have the joys of Karate Kid 3, maybe even the next Karate Kid a few weeks later.
Oh, you mean the best Karate Kid film with Hilary Swank?
Oh, all I say is the first film, despite what you say, is really good. The second film is actually okay-ish. We'll get to this in Legacy. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, the thing is, like I said, there's a long-winded training. There's not a training montage, just a long, stretched-out training sequence. Kind of intertwined with them building up their relationship. There is the lovely musical. There's two musical montages, I suppose. There's Young Hearts by Commuter, which is an absolute belter.
Yeah,
and then later on, when
round is one of the best.
Best. I used to actually think, rather than it being "You're the best around," I always used to think they were saying "You're the best at battle." And it's like one of those things, like if you get it in your head at a young age, you can't hear anything else. Yeah, I used to sing along singing, "You're the best at battle."
Do you remember Sister Christian, the band Sister Christian? They did a song called Night Ranger or something like that, Night Ranger. No. And it's like motoring.
Oh, yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, I always thought it was Motorhead.
Like you said, if you get that in your head at a young age, it's very hard. So I apologize to Joe Esposito for thinking it was best of battle rather than best around, but it is what it is. But there was, what was the other one? I mean, there was a lot of very 80s music in this, but I think Feel the Night was the other one by Baxter Robinson. And that is a much shorter song where you think it's going to turn into a what's that, sorry?
We haven't moved on to soundtrack yet, have we?
No, I was just saying in terms of those two moments, like you get the musical montage earlier, and I always thought it was Feel the Night, but that's actually later on when he goes and that is a scene when he is a bit of a dick. I'll admit that, when he goes back to try and win Ali over and he's being a bit of an asshole. Yeah. Like I said, I'm not arguing the fact that he's a bit of a hothead, but we'll shift away from that. But it's strange that you don't really get that. The closest thing you get to a training montage is him on the beach, but it doesn't feel like an 80s montage. Usually you have like the music, like best around, something like that. But it's very orchestral and quite thoughtful.
That scene is shot lovely.
Yeah. It really is.
Was that you then? Was this sorry?
That's outside. I apologise.
No, I thought a dog had caught himself in a trunk.
Again, one of those moments I wish everyone else could have seen your face, where you just kind of looked at every corner of the screen like, wait, what's happening? Are they coming for me? Are they coming for me?
That's the problem I had. Like, somebody will call me, and the first thing I will do, randomly, is look up. Like, God?
God, is that you? I just think the police are after me. So, like, Bethan came home a few days ago, and she's got her own goddamn key. Instead of using the key, she knocked the door. So I'm going to think, fair enough. But she smashed the door like she was the goddamn 5-0. I'm like, what are you doing? I thought it was the police here. What the? Maybe I'm just guilty. I don't know.
Sorry, but that scene on the beach where Daniel gets out of the water, he's got his little towel on, and he sees Mr. Miyagi doing the crane kick.
And he does it really well.
Yeah, but it's shot beautifully.
Yeah, with the music,
like
the waves in the background, the fact that they've got seagulls in the foreground. I know they're not cranes, but you can see what they're trying to go for. But, when people think of the crane kick, they think of Daniel's slightly dodgy, my legs fucked tournament kick. And, all the way through that tournament, one thing Daniel Russo always looks is quite jittery, and it's the same with that kick. But when Mr. Miyagi is doing it when he's standing on the pole, he does make it look quite majestic, the way he kind of like kneels down, and you can see why it's a crane kick rather than it being this clumsy take on it that Daniel makes later on. And I think that's how the crane kick should be remembered, that beautiful shot on the beach. And this is that's a great way to kind of like close off what is a very non-traditional training montage for an 80s movie. But it does, in fairness, then go straight into the tournament. And then we do get, of course, best around and a more traditional fighting montage at the end of the film, which is, let's be clear, fucking legit.
You want to talk about the tournament as well. You want the biggest dick move in this entire film is stealing somebody else's black belt to give to your student who is nowhere near a black belt to basically lead him into his own demise. Okay, he won. That's great. But
that's a pretty big kind of thing to take into consideration when criticizing
somebody else's black belt.
Oh, they'll be able to get another belt. That's the worst thing that happens in this tournament. Not the fact that not one, but two of Kreese's students both tried to break his leg. No. It's them stealing the belt at the beginning. That's clearly the worst thing that happens.
Had to break his leg if Mr. Miyagi didn't send him into his doom.
I think you are going to die on this hill, aren't you? You are going to die on this hill. But again, it comes back to that idea that the real bad guy in this movie is Kreese. Because don't get me wrong, Steve McQueen's kid, the way he comes into the room and he's like a complete asshole. But you can see they've all been geared up by Kreese. Yeah. He's told them, it's you don't fucking lose. You go there, you rough him up, you scare him.
Yeah.
And that's what they're doing. And it's that idea that he's almost kind of set his guard dogs on Danny. And it's when it's not enough, he's the one. He's very calm, very calculated. He's, what does he say? Take him out of commission or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And it's just all right. And you can see the guy's no, I can beat him. It's no. You're going to fucking take him out. I don't want any chance of this kid winning the tournament. He doesn't even trust Johnny. He's no, we're just going to wipe him out.
If Daniel was taken out of the tournament, he would probably have the guy throw the fight anyway for Johnny.
Mm-hmm.
It's just to make Johnny feel. It's like his prize student. He still wants Johnny to be under his wing. He still wants Johnny under his wing, under his thumb. He still wants Johnny to be controlled by him. So I do have Kreese is a terrible person in this film, but again, delivered perfectly by Martin Kove.
Oh, he's great. He's the way he looks down at Mr. Miyagi. You can feel the racism coming off him. You totally can. The way he looks down on his culture, the way he's training. It's no, this is the only way to do it. And of course, my super aggressive, hardcore Cobra Kai are going to smash your peace-loving hippies over Miyagi-Do karate.
Yeah.
And like you say, he doesn't get a huge amount of screen time, but like any great villain, he makes every scene count. counts, and he just oozes horribleness from every. The only person who can match him is in Karate Kid 3. A terrible film.
Silver.
Yeah, we'll get to Terry Silver in Legacy, but Jesus Christ. But it's weird because obviously you watch that film, it follows the traditional tournament 80 setup where, of course, it's all building up to a fight between Johnny and Danny. But of course, you have to have that third guy who no one knows just to prove that there are other people who are good.
Yeah.
And there's like that one guy who's like, they just kind of show a few too many times to say, oh no, wait, this guy's good. And of course, one of them needs to fight him and beat him in the semi-final. Yeah. It's just weird in this film that it's actually Johnny who needs to beat him rather than Danny, because Danny's just fighting, obviously, the guys
all Daniel's fighting is the Cobra Kai guys. That one random Cobra Kai as well, the really big, beefy guy who walks. He doesn't walk in with any fighting stance. He just walks in like he's carrying carpets under his arms. He's trying to attack.
Yeah, they're a weird bunch. But the karate in the film, it's the best you'll ever see on screen.
Yeah, but it's quite good for karate. You're not expecting triple spin kicks before you hit somebody in the face.
No, and I think
karate.
I think it would be unrealistic to expect so. This is local karate at a high school level, you know? And I like the fact that Daniel, like his style, you can see he's nervous, even his performance. Like he's very jittery. He's almost like, they get to the tournament, he doesn't know what to expect. Fucking Mr. Miyagi doesn't know what to expect. So he's very much that kind of like fish out of water. It's like, well, I'm just going to deal with this and hopefully my training will get me through, and obviously builds in confidence. But even towards the end, like you can see when he's holding his stance, he's like he looks terrified all the time, which I think is actually quite charming.
You're about dying on a hill. You won't quit the fact that Daniel is not a jerk, will you? You won't.
Dude, I won't. And Ralph Macchio, that's another weird thing. Why wasn't he a bigger star? Like, I mean, you might disagree, but you even said you don't mind Ralph Macchio. Ralph Macchio. Yeah, fair enough. Well, in '83, Ralph Macchio was arguably the star of The Outsiders. And if you go back and
great, he was Pony Boy, wasn't he?
Pony Boy, yeah, and he was fantastic. No, he wasn't Pony Boy. He's the one who says
Thomas Howell.
He's the one who says "Stay gold, Pony Boy." Yeah, he delivers the famous line.
Yeah.
But that is an outrageously famous cast. I mean, all these like young kids who went, like Tom Cruise, all these other ones who went on to these massive careers. And you think off the back of The Outsiders, like he went straight into Karate Kid, which was one of the biggest movies of the year. He obviously had the subsequent sequels, Karate Kid 2 in particular, doing really well. He had Crossroads, and then it kind of all goes a bit quiet. But then he had My Cousin Vinny in '92, which was another big film, which is
fantastic film. Love that film.
Yeah, and then it just drifts away. And it's like, what the fuck happened to Ralph Macchio? Like, why wasn't Ralph Macchio a bigger star? It's just one of those weird things, I suppose.
Can we say
you Mark Hamill? Like Mark Hamill
brushed over. Sorry, you briefly brushed over Crossroads.
No, I did mention Crossroads.
Yeah, no, I said you briefly went.
Oh, sorry.
I love Crossroads.
Yeah, it's a good film.
I think it's a great film. And it's the kind of premise of this where he's learning something, and what he's learned from his teacher at the beginning or the middle of the film, he uses to win at the end. Now, for anyone who hasn't seen Crossroads, it's basically, well, who was the guy that sold his soul to the devil at the Crossroads? It was Robert.
I forgot his name.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm like all I can think of now is from like, Oh Brother, Where Art Thou?
Yeah.
Because they have that character in that. It's like a famous kind of...
So he sold his soul to the devil to become a great blues player. Now, that's the premise of Crossroads.
Yeah.
Ralph Macchio is like, he works at a nursing home and he meets a famous blues player who played the harmonica. Turns out he sold his soul to the devil, so they go on a mission to try and get his soul back. And the last battle is a guitar duel. And I think it's done fantastic. I think it's great. I think it's a wicked film. Yeah,
it's a good film, and it's strange because again, to come back to The Outsiders, you've got all these like stars in waiting, but out of all of them, he's the one who comes off the hottest after The Outsiders. You look at 1986. He's probably the biggest star of all of them. Like, he's done Karate Kid, he's done Crossroads, he's done Karate Kid 2. All, big hits. I don't think Crossroads was necessarily a massive hit, but, it did okay, I think. And then, like I said, it just kind of dies a death for a while. And you think, like I said... I'm sorry.
Sorry, I was just saying... so he did My Cousin Vinny, then he did something called Naked in New York in 93, then he disappeared till 98.
Yep. I wonder if there's a reason for it. But...
Yeah, he was a voice in Secret and Nim 2. And then he's basically just doing, what was it, like little cameos and things. But yeah, pretty much this, but it's not like he went to do TV stuff as well, because his TV stuff changes.
Well,
like, it was 82 he did something, and then 99 he did an episode of The Outer Limits, and then 2000, from 2000 onwards, then he was doing like bits of TV stuff. But yeah, I wonder if he made this so big. It's like Macaulay Culkin doesn't have to act anymore because of the one film he did.
Yeah, maybe he did. He just decided not to. It's just quite often, if you look at these things, it's like we've said it before with directors, like they'll have this like hot streak. And then like sometimes Hollywood, being as unfair as it is, it's like if you have one or two films back to back and they bomb or whatever, you just, suddenly you're just not viable and you're just not hot anymore and you drift away. But he doesn't have that. It's not like, it was like, oh, he had this hot streak, then he had a bunch of films which didn't work. It was just like nobody was really picking him up for a while. Yeah. And as I said, the only thing I can compare it to was someone like Mark Hamill, because obviously he came off Star Wars, and you think, all right, well, at least he'll get like a few films to kind of prove him. Like even, what's his name, who plays Anakin? What's his name?
Hayden Christensen.
He had his shot at the big time. He had like Broken Glass. He had Jumper, stuff like that. That was a big budget movie. But Mark Hamill didn't even have those. It's just kind of like it was Star Wars, and there was like, well, nothing. But I know he's been in TV and voice work, but you know what I mean? It never felt like he had that chance to be a big Hollywood star again. And it feels kind of like that with Ralph Macchio as well.
But that might be the fact that people see them as that character. I mean, look
that is very true.
Scott at Stifler.
Yeah.
You can't hire Sean William Scott to do anything. Even now, you can't hire Sean William Scott to do anything.
That is a great point. And he is so quintessentially Karate Kid.
If you get him to act, like Sean William Scott does a great film called Goon.
Yes, great film.
Fantastic film. It's different. Yeah, so it's different, but kind of the same as well. It's not much of a different foray for Sean William Scott. But he's not able, like, people just see him. But I mean, people go on the street and you show somebody a picture, you say, who's this? Stifler. You show somebody a picture of Ralph Macchio. They're not going to go Ralph Macchio. They're going to go Karate Kid. They probably won't even see Daniel Lawrence.
No, they probably show him Daniel Lawrence. What is it with you and Daniel Lawrence?
I don't know. Daniel LaRusso. LaRusso is just, it's coming off the tongue a bit harder than Lawrence. So
yeah, please.
You show him Mark Hamill. Some people might try and be a bit funny if they voice the Joker, but it's Luke Skywalker.
No, I think I totally think you're on something there, because you are talking about somebody like Mark Hamill. You just see him and you just think Luke Skywalker. And yeah, Ralph Macchio is exactly the same. And probably people are like, we can't hire him. It's the Karate Kid. Yeah. So again, kind of like Mr. Miyagi's reputation, it became a victim of its own success. Yeah. Like, it was so successful and became such a big part of popular culture that it was like people can't see beyond him being Daniel LaRusso and the Karate Kid. And the same with Mr. Miyagi, because you see it in a bunch of films. And of course, he played up to a certain extent where he shows up in films basically playing Mr. Miyagi.
Yeah.
But if you remove all that and you go back to it, you're like, oh, God, he was so good in this film. So it's a weird thing that they were both victims of their own success to a certain extent.
He's probably thinking, look, I've already had a career before all of this.
Like he wouldn't have minded. Yeah, like you said.
He's like, I was Al in Happy Days. I was in MASH. Yeah. I was in, like, he's had a career. This was the twilight of his career at this point. So if this was one of his biggest characters, he's going to play on that to keep going.
Of course. And it's not an issue then. It's like, you've got a career, like you say, it's already behind you for the most part. And then you have this like late career resurgence and everyone knows you as Mr. Miyagi, and it becomes this huge cultural phenomenon. It's not an issue for him in the same way that it was an issue for Ralph Macchio. I mean, it's more in terms of it's a different problem, obviously, an issue for the character's legacy, because, as I said, it's become so popular, so big, that I think people have lost sight of the subtlety, quite often the subtlety, the grace, and the quality of his performance. And as I said, like, I actually asked my friends about this when I was speaking to them a few days ago. I was like, just out of interest, if I asked you, like, does it sound weird if I told you that Mr. Miyagi, I just said Mr. Miyagi, I'm not going to say Marita, because apparently they wouldn't know who it was. But I'm like, would it sound weird to you that he was nominated for a Best Supporting Actor Oscar? And they were all like, yeah, really, for Mr. Miyagi? And I get it, because it does sound surprising based on your idea of the performance. But then you watch the film again, and you're like, that's not weird at all, because he's great.
Was it Jack Nicholson, by the way, who beat him out for tears?
No, God, where did I write it down?
I mean, this is one of the longest ones we've done because we have disagreed wholeheartedly.
Perhaps I've got it on the facts. Maybe we'll get into facts. Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, I can go. I can go on to facts.
Oh, wait. One last thing before we do. Is this one of the most misquoted lines in movie history? Everyone says, "Sweep the leg, no mercy." He doesn't say that in the film. He says, "Sweep the leg." You have a problem with that? No mercy. Everyone drops that you have a problem with that. Everyone just says, "Sweep the leg." Like it's on posters, it's on T-shirts. "Sweep the leg, no mercy." He doesn't say that. No. He says, "Sweep the leg." You have a problem with that? No mercy.
I've only ever known her as "sweep the leg." Like I've never seen the no mercy part.
Oh, I've definitely seen the like "sweep the leg" and then "no mercy." But maybe they're treating it as separate things. But hey ho, whatever, man. But yeah. Let's move on before we end up killing each other.
From Cardiff to Edinburgh, I think that's bad, yeah.
Oh, we could travel, I suppose.
So the yellow classic automobile that Daniel polishes in the famous wax-on, wax-off training scene, then later offered by Mr. Miyagi as Daniel's birthday gift, was actually given to Ralph Macchio by the producer, and he still owns it. The car is a 1948 Ford Super Deluxe. Now, I think that's good. He still kept this.
Yeah, it was such a great car as well. Such a cool car. Like Mr. Miyagi's whole, like his house, which was criminally knocked down in the 80s because people went looking for it after the film. His car collection, it's just fucking dope, man. It's just, and it does have an Okinawan vibe. The whole thing.
But all of that stuff as well. I mean, he is a handyman.
Well, that is the thing. Like he's built his house, though, hasn't he? Yeah. He didn't buy the house; he built it all.
Yeah, but
and the garden's lovely and stuff. Yeah, he's the best. He's the best.
He's the best around.
She totally is the best around.
Ralph
the best in battle. No, okay.
During filming, some of the cast did not believe him when they asked about his age.
Oh, dude, he looks like a child.
Yeah,
it's unbelievable.
Pat Morita himself designed the bonsai logo that was sewed onto Daniel's gi. Cool. So that I quite like that if he designed that. That's because that is classic. That was the hint that we used this week on social media, and a lot of people got it. So everyone, you see that, you're going to guess Karate Kid.
Yeah, you. I think when people, I think to this day, and again, you talk about the movie's place in popular culture. I think, especially for people our age, if you see a bonsai tree, you immediately think of Karate Kid.
Yeah,
you absolutely do.
The studio wanted to drop the drunk Miyagi scene, feeling it slowed the pace down. Director John G. Avildsen argued for it and has felt it was the scene that got Pat Morita nominated for an Oscar. You know, I agree with that.
Oh, he's great.
Pat Morita's portrayal of Mr. Miyagi was heavily influenced by karate master Fumio Demura. Morita spent a lot of time with Demura, who doubled him for his fight scenes and translated not only Demura's attitude towards the martial arts to the character, but also his mannerisms and speech. This I love. When Mr. Miyagi is drunk and celebrating an anniversary, he reveals that he served in the army in the 442nd Regimental Combat Team. The unit composed mostly of Japanese Americans, many of whom had been in internment camps. Fought in Europe during World War II, it became the most highly decorated unit in the history of the United States military.
Awesome.
I think
that's really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, as I say, it's one of those things they just touch upon, but it's just a nice little subtle touch, which again adds depth to the character and the narrative, I think. William
Zabka, Ralph Macchio, and Martin Kove were all good friends in real life. That is a case of life not imitating art. I mean, you see these characters on screen, and you instantly think that they're going to hate each other. And like, so if you see them walking down the street laughing, you're thinking, "Oh, hang on, why's Karate Kid laughing with the Cobra Kai guy?" Do you know what I mean?
I find it weird seeing them as buddies. Totally.
According to Ralph Macchio at Alamo Comic-Con 2016, the movie should have ended with Daniel being carried off by the crowd, but they decided to reshoot it with Mr. Miyagi smiling at the end, which they agreed was a better ending.
Yeah, absolutely. He's the star of the film, and he's the heart. Like, for fear of sounding slightly cheesy, he is the heart and soul of this movie. He absolutely is.
In the opening scene, the kids chasing the car down the street, waving goodbye, are all from the neighborhood. They were hanging around the set and interfering with the shoot. The director offered to put them in the movie if they would leave the crew alone.
That's how you get in films, just being annoying little shit until someone's like, "All right, we'll put you in the fucking film." Whatever, dude.
This I like. William Zabka had no martial arts experience prior to being cast in the film. However, he was an accomplished wrestler. And now he is like a black belt, I think.
No, see, the influence of the movie.
The last spin kick that Daniel is hit with before he is saved by Mr. Miyagi actually hit Ralph Macchio and hurt him. I gotta think somebody did that on purpose.
Maybe.
The referee in the final match is Patty Johnson, and he went through all the films then, didn't he? A karate expert and former student of Chuck Norris. He instructed many movie stars in karate. He's credited as the fight instructor, choreographer for the film.
And also, did you know he ended up with his own toy based on the ref? There was a toy line in 1986, and there was like a competition center toy set, and there was a figure of the referee of him, like with the mustache and everything. So he got his own toy, which I thought was pretty cool.
William Zabka continued his karate training and became a second-degree green belt. This reminds me, I actually watched a film the other day with William Zabka in another martial arts film called Shoot Fighter.
Oh my God.
Yeah,
Shoot Fighter. Yeah. No shit.
It stars Martin Cove.
Okay.
And William Zabka's trainer is the bad guy from Bloodsport, Bolo Young.
Oh my God. It's just like, you know, like, remember there was that famous sketch by where they're dressed in like all the Nazi gear, like the SS.
Yeah.
And they suddenly look down and they're like, do you ever get the feeling we might be the bad guys? Like that realization, like, because they're dressed in all black, like they're clearly dressed like villains. Like, what was this film called? Shoot Fighter. Shoot Fighter. Do you think anybody is like, they're filming it and they look at it, it's like, shoot, we're definitely in a shit film. Like they know. There's no way a film called Shoot Fighter is going to be anything else other than rubbish. They must realize it.
I don't know, because they all came back for Shoot Fighter 2.
Oh, go fuck yourself. There's not a Shoot Fighter 2.
Yes, there is. Yeah.
All right, I'm going down the rabbit hole on this. After this,
Amazon Prime. They're free on Amazon Prime at the moment.
So I'm going to at least give Shoot Fighter, and maybe I'll just jump straight to Shoot Fighter 2. Who knows? I'm going to give one of them 15 minutes.
Shoot Fighter 1
before. Oh, of course. Yeah, it won't make any sense. You won't get the depth of character, of course. Jesus Christ, Shoot Fighter. All right, so Shoot Fighter after this. Fair enough. That's what we'll be doing next week. Fucking hell.
The fly in the scene was attached to a fishing line and was being moved around by a crew member.
Yeah.
The skeleton fight scene endured numerous takes because the actors complained that Fumio Demura, Pat Morita's stunt double, was hitting them too hard, which caused the scene to lose some of the choreography and authenticity. I do like that. The people playing the bullies, like, oh, dude,
they've got the ass whooped. Oh, that was one of the other things, like, because he's obviously in his 60s and he's a small guy as well.
Yeah.
But I never question the fact that he can kick other asses. Like, there's something about the way he carries himself that when he does beat people up, you're like, yeah, of course he can. It's Mr. fucking Miyagi.
But he is beating up teenagers, but we won't go into that because we've already moved on.
Oh, well, you know, there's a lot of them.
Yeah. So the combined age makes it fun.
Well, dude, like, a perfect, like, I remember, is it Spaced? When he goes after him and he's like, go fuck yourself. And then they come in from the side and they have that moment like Jurassic Park's like clever boys and they all attack him. It's like, even if there's teenagers, if there's 6 of them, man, it's going to be a handful. And he's a little dude. Again, you're siding with the bullies. What the hell? All right, forget it.
Fumio told the director that if he could use his own students, they would get the shot in one take. The director agreed and they shot the fight scene successfully in one take. Nice. One of the doubles is a descendant of the legendary King of the Frontier, Davy Crockett.
Bloody hell.
Yeah.
I thought the Steve McQueen thing was going to be the story. We've got a Davy Crockett descendant in the film as well. Unreal. What a film. What a film. What a movie. What a time to be alive.
The street outside the dojo wasn't closed for filming. They were really dodging traffic. I mean, can you imagine filming this, right? It's Bowfinger with with Eddie Murphy. And he goes, they're stunt drivers, it's fine.
Oh, they all know. They know. Just go for it. Just go. Oh, God.
And then somebody sees Ralph Macchio just running and speeds up just a little bit.
I want to watch Bowfinger now. I love that film. Bowfinger's such a good film. Underrated classic comedy.
I got you, sucker. Or wherever he says at the end to kill the Chubby Ray. The film is called Chubby Ray.
Dude, I still use Chubby Rain all the time. I was like, what's the weather like? There's a bit of Chubby Rain going on, I can tell you that much. Anyway. Is that everything for facts? Or we?
No. Actually, no, we're good.
Okay, well, I'm not going to add any others. I think we've done plenty there. In terms of legacy, we've already touched on this. There's an okay sequel. The third film, I mean, it's terrible, but it does have Thomas Ian Griffin as Terry Silver, one of the most ludicrously 90s bad guys. We're coming back to the 90s bad guy ponytail here. Another example. He delivers the most homoerotic line in movie history. I love it when he pounds on him.
Yes. But
Jesus Christ.
Like, this guy apparently is classically trained. And there's the scene where he's in his steam room talking to Kreese on the phone. Kreese is meant to be in Tahiti or wherever he is. Yeah, anything else I can do for you? Make his knuckles bleed. And the way he goes, ha, I love that. I'm going to use that. It's like he's so over enthusiastic.
He's terrible, but he's terrible in the best possible way, in so much that he is at least memorable. And they did bring him back for Cobra Kai, didn't they? He's coming back in the next season or something.
Yeah. So whether it's Silver is coming back, I'm pretty sure
it has to. I think it'll be. I'm pretty sure it'll be.
Thomas Ian Griffith is actually in a film, and I'm going off again, called Crackerjack.
Brilliant.
It's Die Hard in a ski resort.
Called Crackerjack. Yeah, it makes perfect sense. Die Hard in a ski resort. Let's call it Crackerjack. The only title worse than that is The Karate Kid, which I still think is a horrendous name for a really good film. Or maybe,
as we're in Legacy, or maybe a remake called The Karate Kid, where it's about Kung Fu.
Yeah, well, that's one of the other issues. I mean, obviously, the next one was the ill-advised, the next Karate Kid with Hilary Swank. That's just a bad film. Don't bother with that. Then there's the 2010 remake with Jackie Chan and
Hayden. About 11 years ago already.
Yeah. What's his name? Jaden Smith, is that his name?
Jaden Smith, yeah.
Jaden Smith. And yeah, for one, it's a film about Kung Fu rather than karate, so that's pretty dumb. But it's a weird one, because that film has got like a really bad reputation now. It's not as bad as people say. It's not a great film, but it's not a terrible film.
The best thing that film does is redeem the mother-son dynamic that the original
which dies a death in this film. Yeah. Because that is the thing. There's this whole story where they're moving across the country from one coast to the other, which, make no fucking mistake, in a car is a long-ass way. Oh, my cats are fighting now. 1 second. Oi, cats, behave. Sorry, you can probably hear growling in the background. So, yeah, she drives all the way across the country to supposedly get a job in computers, but then just works in a restaurant and says, I can get better pay if I do a course working in a restaurant 2 nights a week. And that just kind of goes away and drifts off into the ether. So essentially, she drives all the way across the country to totally kind of upends their lives so she can work in a restaurant.
Yeah.
It's bizarre. It's bizarre. And it just doesn't get dealt with. So, yeah, that does get redeemed in that film. And despite, of course, Jaden Smith is totally unlikable. But in fairness, he's very good at Kung Fu in that film. I mean, his kicks are pretty impressive. But it's not a terrible film. It's not. It's okay.
I mean, you just take the name The Karate Kid, take any relation that people have for the love of the original, then it's a good film. But we've said that before about a lot of remakes and stuff. If you just, I mean, the Total Recall remake for a start, if it wasn't called Total Recall, it'd be a decent sci-fi actioner.
It'd be okay, yeah. It's just, you compare, it's just bland, and that is the problem. It's like you're talking about one of the least bland movies of all time. Whatever your views on films like Total Recall, RoboCop, is Paul Verhoeven instills them with a sense of like really, they're just interesting films, like visually, narratively, and instead they remake them into competent but pretty bland kind of sci-fi films. And like the issue here is that, yeah, it's an okay film, but I know we have our different opinion here, but a big part of what makes this film work is that relationship between Ralph Macchio and Pat Morita. And they're okay in it. Like Jackie Chan's fine, Jaden Smith's actually okay in it, but it just doesn't have the same zip to it. And the point is, it's like, does it need to be remade? Not really. So its biggest crime is that it just feels a bit pointless, basically. But if you feel like compelled to go watch it, there are worse films to watch, but that's probably the nicest thing I can say about it.
Instead, 1 and 2.
Yeah. Just watch this and then go to Cobra Kai. Although saying that, as much as I love this film, I've not felt compelled to keep watching it. Like, I do think tonally they've got the TV show right. I think it's an interesting approach to, I especially Johnny Lawrence, who's played brilliantly by, what's his name? Yeah, exactly. He's great in the TV show. And I love the fact that they make him sympathetic, but without change. Like, he's still a dick, but they add a bit of depth. And that's what I mean with the film, is that I think they could run another film, at the same time alongside it, where you could create a more sympathetic outlook for Johnny. And it's an interesting approach. I think they do it really well in the show. But what I found out is, like, I don't want to watch 25 hours of Karate Kid. It's just, I don't need it. I'm like, I'm happy with the film, and that's kind of enough.
I swear,
despite the fact that it's good.
I swear, I'm not doing this on purpose.
You really like the show, yeah?
I really enjoyed the show.
No. Right, let's be fair here. I really enjoyed the show as well.
Yeah.
It was just, I got so far into it. I was just like, I kind of, like, you don't read it, the riot act. It's not some big thing like, I'm not watching this anymore. It just kind of got away from me. And I wasn't I just wasn't keeping up with it. And then all of a sudden, I read that they're doing the 5th season on the 5th. When did they get to the 5th season? But saying that, rewatching the first film, I loved it so much that I'm actually going to go back and get back into the TV show and give it another go.
As much as I have issues with this film, and there's a lot of them, as we've already discussed, I really like the way they've gone back in, and you've got the new school, but the mythology of the original. But they're not pushing the original characters down your throat either. It's just they're there and they're hell. And it's the continuation of that story, and which is good because they're not trying to shove Daniel LaRusso, who is still a complete and utter turd. He's
still a bit of a dick in the show.
So I do appreciate that, and I do like where it's going, but it seems to be turning into, I mean, like you said, the 5th season, it's becoming a bit like now Dynasty or Dallas or something like that. You need to end it at some point. But I do like the fact that, because they keep going, okay, they're bringing Terry Silver back now, season 5, can they bring back Mike? Or let's hope somebody's mother is actually the Hilary Swank from Next Karate Kid. I mean, at some point, they're going to go, all right, we've run out of characters. Let's get Michael Ironside, who was the bad dojo instructor from...
Well, that is the thing. At some point, you either go, okay, this is just going to be its own thing now, and it's going to have to live off its own legacy rather than the legacy of the original films. But of course, these are plays to kind of like reignite interest in it. Although, is that needed? Because the show seems to be super popular. Yeah. But as I said, I thought they did a great job. I think because of trying to make it more kind of palatable for a 2021, 2020 audience, whatever you want to say, it loses that threat, which I think is an important part of the original film. That idea that you are, and again, I'm talking from my perspective, not your own, is part of the reason you get behind Danny is because you're fearful for him, or you can put yourself in his shoes, because you're just like, man, these kids are going to show up and they're going to fuck him up. And that's like scary. And I think that sense of legitimate threat is removed in the show. And it makes for a tonally different show. And part of it now is that Johnny's the fish out of water, because he's not been able to let go of his 80s past, like with the car and everything. And of course, then suddenly to be a success, he's got to meet these kids halfway. But the great thing is the fact that he does meet them halfway. Like, he never turns out the pilot light on him being a dick. He's still a dick. Yeah. But he's just, again, a more sympathetic character. And it's more like they're saying, well, these kids who are kind of more savvy in today's world, they're not without their faults either. And somewhere in the middle, they can both make themselves right. And that's the great thing about Mr. Miyagi's and Daniel's relationship, is that neither of them are perfect, and they both make each other better. And I think that's something they get right in the show. But as I said, I enjoyed the film enough that I'm going to go back and give the show another go. So
yeah, well, I mean, I think season 4 is coming up Christmas time, so it'd be a good shout to watch it before season 4 comes out. We briefly... Well, do you want to briefly touch on soundtrack, considering we said a lot of it during...
I mean, we've said a lot of it. Yeah. I mean, this is about for soundtrack. I mean, beyond the obviously Best Around by Joe Esposito, Young Hearts by Commuter, I mean, there's some really 80s stuff here, like Cool Summer by Bananarama. Like the start of the movie in particular is super 80s. And just as you think it can't get any more 80s, Danny Russo comes down the corner on a BMX with Cool Summer being played by Bananarama. I'm like, dude, that might be the most 80s thing I've ever seen. Like Rhythm Man by St. Regis, aggressively 80s. But there's also, like, obviously we mentioned earlier, the fact that this song, Best Around was kind of offered to Stallone for Rocky 3, but they turned it down in favor of Eye of the Tiger, which, of course, I think worked out for everyone in the end, because it's like Eye of the Tiger is a bad song. But Survivor is actually on the soundtrack for this as well. There's a song called Moment of Truth. And if you don't remember it, it's because it's shit. They obviously saved all their best stuff for Rocky, but it means to say it's a memorable soundtrack. It's a very 80s soundtrack, but it's an important part of this film, and I think it's actually pretty good.
I like the soundtrack, and Best Around is on my playlist.
Oh, it's a belter. It's one step down from like the Rocky 4 soundtrack in terms of like a training montage song. Like, there's no beating the kind of hearts on fire and stuff like that of Rocky 4. But this is on that next step for sure.
This is in the same level as Win in the End in Teen Wolf.
Oh, 100%. That is perfect. This sits absolutely on the exact same pedestal, the exact same 8.5 out of 10. What am I doing? that one rung on the ladder just down where those two sit on their own. That's a perfect comparison. In terms of video games, there was a recent Cobra Kai scroll and beat 'em up. I've played it. It's shite. There's not actually been that many. Back in 1986, there was an Atari game which feels like it was a karate game which they just kind of added the Karate Kid name to. But in 1987, LJN published it, and Atlas of all companies actually developed it. And it was a game based on Karate Kid 1 and 2 kind of combined. And you go back and see it, it looks great for a NES game. You can tell it's the Karate Kid. You can kind of pick out scenes from the films. And I'd say it's like one of the better kind of licenses from that era, because there was a lot of dodgy games for the NES. And in terms of like, it even had a chopstick minigame, which was kind of cool. But then, of course, I'm thinking, what would I want today if you were going to make a Karate Kid video game? Well, obviously not the guys who made Cobra Kai, because that was garbage. But I was like, well, if Atlas were making this game in 1987, it's like, why not have them make a Karate Kid game in 2021? Because they do most famously probably like this Shin Megami Tensei, but their most famous license is probably Persona. I'm not sure if it's a game you've heard of.
No.
Well, Persona, like what they do brilliantly is life in a Japanese high school. And of course, it has all this kind of magical RPG battles that built around it. But a big part of it is like those social relationships in high school. So it's like you could almost have like an RPG set in a American high school in the 80s. So it's not just about the karate, it's about dealing with these social aspects as well and building up relationships. But then, of course, you have, instead of maybe an RPG, you could have a real-time battle system at the end of it. So I'm going to go with, to complete the circle, Atlas did the Karate Kid in 87, and they could do one again in 2021. So that's what I'm sticking with.
I reckon somebody should do a mod of the Rockstar Vancouver game, Bully, and just put Daniel LaRusso over the main character and just have him going around being a dick. But no.
Fair enough. I mean, you're staying on point, in fairness.
I would make it like, I don't know, just there's not enough character. I think it should be focused more on the tournament side and just have it as kind of like Mortal Kombat-esque or Street Fighter-esque. So if you had like Konami doing it, or not Konami, Capcom, sorry, or who did? I can't think of who did. Midway did Mortal Kombat, did they?
I think so. It was it was published by Midway, but it's like now they're called NetherRealm Studios who develop it.
Well, I'd have it as a proper just tournament style beat 'em up where you just go and stuff. Yeah. So
fair enough. I was thinking maybe something a bit more, because again, maybe I have different opinions on the film, but I think a bigger part of this narrative is building up those social relationships. So you could have that story where he goes to school. He's got to like balance, like a big part of those games is balancing your time between different people, between like building up friendships, building up your relationship with Mr. Miyagi, spending time with your psycho mother, who again, I don't want to be too harsh because she's nice, but she's clearly a fucking nut. That's another thing on Ralph Macchio's part, or Daniel LaRusso, those things he has to deal with. Yes, his mother is a loving mother. She's the worst. She's so bad. Like she would be like, you'd just be mortified all the time if you're like 17 and she's showing up. It's like, oh, Danny, help push the car. Okay, that's not the best accent in the world, but you get the fucking idea. But anyway,
I do think you've gone way too. You're stuck in this narrative, and you've turned the video game into something that not a lot of people would want. No offense to it. It's not really a good idea. But if anyone thinks of a Karate Kid video game, they just want to see the tournament.
Yeah, well, as I said, I'm thinking very much what I want to see rather than, you say that with the tournament, but it's like this, well, I don't know, maybe you add all the characters, Cobra Kai, now, maybe you'd have like the full narrative. So, a full cast of fighting characters. I cannot speak anymore. But we'll go for, it's one or the other. We'll go for the Atlas one, or we'll go for the traditional beat 'em up, whatever. But it's, it can be done. It can be done. So, it's just strange. The main thing is, it's just odd that there haven't been more of them. That's the strange thing, I suppose, looking back at it.
Let's score.
Here we go.
And
here we go. Here we go. All right, you go first. Pull off that plaster, dude. Go for it.
Well, Pat Morita saves it, because as much as I've said that I dislike this film, I love Pat Morita in it. I think he does really well in it, and aside from the jokes I've made about grooming and stuff, but but it's still a 2-star film.
Okay,
and
fair enough.
I can't see me recommending it to other people. It's not a film I enjoy watching, so it's not a film I would. I mean, I would probably recommend it to somebody I don't like.
This is interesting because I mean, this is our 30th podcast we've done together.
Jesus.
And one of the issues I guess we've had in the past, I'm not sure if it's an issue, but is that when it comes to movies, at least, is that so often our tastes align. So quite often, maybe that kind of, I can't think of many films when we've really disagreed strongly. There have been ones which I've liked more, and you've been maybe a bit more kind of, it's a 3, and I'm like, I really like it, it's a 4 or a 5. But I think this might be the first film we've come across where we have that strong difference of opinion. And it's made for a very different podcast. But I mean, if I was rating this film, I was talking to my wife, who, like, she said she'd seen it, but she couldn't remember. And she actually, thank God, she's at least fell on my side of the fence. She both really liked it. She agreed with the Daniel LaRusso thing. Like, we were watching it at the same level. So maybe it's just because I've had this like sounding board of somebody who agrees with me all day. But I was like, what do I give this film, a 4 or a 5? That's how strongly I feel about it. I think it's legitimately one of the best sports films ever made. I'm going to give it a 4. But fuck me, man, it's close. Like, I think this is a legitimately exceptional film. And would I recommend it to others? Not only have I done that in the past, like in that whole, you haven't seen Karate Kid, I would encourage people like myself who haven't seen it for ages to go back and rewatch it with fresh eyes, because I think as you're older, you may be watching it in a different way, but it's a better movie than I remember, a movie I already enjoyed. So yeah, not only would I recommend it to new people who hadn't seen it, I'd recommend it to, not you, obviously, but other people to say. Although saying that now, I'm legitimately interested. Like, I would love if we could somehow convince all of our friends to rewatch The Karate Kid, and we could all have like a fucking group chat about it next week to see if people agree. Because the only thing I compared it to before was, we got totally carried away with this argument where one of my friends tried to convince me that Demolition Man is a better movie than True Lies. And I fucking went off. I was like, you can prefer it, but I was like, objectively, True Lies is a better made movie than Demolition Man, blah, blah, blah. And it just kind of went off and everyone got involved.
I'm going to piss on your chips a little bit now.
Demolition Man?
No. They're making a True Lies TV show remake.
I don't want to see that. I don't want to see. I mean,
and do you know what? Right, look at the guy who they're getting to replace Arnie.
Mm-hmm.
His name's Steve Howie. Right? Just
bad name.
I know,
bad name.
But yeah,
well, like
the whole man is better. I'm joking.
Okay, Jesus Christ. Well, anyway, I'd be legitimately interested to know how people, like, if they rewatched it now, how they felt about that film. If they still think that Danny LaRusso is the bad guy of this film, if he's a prick, if the film's bad. But yeah, it's one of those interesting ones. We have wildly different opinions on this one, but yes, my opinion is it's very good. Go see it.
I've got a sneaky suspicion I'm in the minority.
Well, as I said, I don't know. I'm not sure about the quality of the film. I feel like people still like the film, and that's all on my side. But I've got a funny feeling in terms of how people perceive Daniel LaRusso. I think it might fall closer to your side. So it might be a split decision. We'll see how it goes. But yeah, so let's leave Karate Kid very much firmly in the rearview mirror. And what are we doing next week, dude?
Well, I've actually been thinking about this. Let me ask you, would you like to see a Scottish guy playing a Spaniard?
Yes.
And a Belgian playing a Scottish guy?
Absolutely. And two guys who clearly can't do accents, let's be clear.
Well, we're two guys that clearly can't do accents, so it all works out. So basically, Highlander. We're going to do Highlander next week.
That's going to be a fun one because that film is fucking bananas. It is bananas.
You want to spend a lot of time on soundtrack? Queen gives it to you.
Yeah, it really does. There's a lot to do with this film, and it'll be interesting because I watched part of it quite recently, and as to whether it's held up is up for debate. Yeah. So this is going to be an interesting one. So yeah, hope you guys can join us next week because I think Highlander's going to be great fun to talk about. This is one where sword fighting becomes a bit ropey now. If you look at it now compared to there's a lot of this film which is pretty ropey nowadays. Yeah. So especially as somebody who now lives in Scotland and is very much aware of how Scottish people talk. This one's going to be a lot of fun. So I think this is a great choice. I'm looking forward to it, man. Wicked. So next week then we'll meet up for Highlander. Sounds good, mate. Cool. Thanks, Rob. I really appreciate this absolutely batshit crazy podcast. It's been an interesting chat. Yeah. But as you said, join us next week and thanks for listening. Cheers, guys. Oh, yeah. And before I forget, because I always forget, here's Rob telling you where you can actually find us.
Yeah, so we're currently on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter under Hey You Guys 80s or at Hey You Guys 80s. And we're also on email at heyyouguys80s@gmail.com. Please feel free to drop us any emails, any recommendations, or any reviews you have. But whilst we're on about that, wherever you get your podcasts, please also smash the subscribe button. Yes, I said smash.
It's fine. Don't worry about it. It's fine.
Leave us a review and leave us some 5-star ratings as well. But make sure they're 5-star ratings.
Yeah. We're not interested in 1-star. 5-star. If it's not going to be 5-star, don't go smashing anything. Just leave your opinion to yourself. 5-star ratings only. But yeah, if you could do that, we'd really appreciate it. Thanks, guys.
Thank you. See you next week.